Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to tonight's live stream. And Chelsea back in business now. The mega store's back open, the hotel's open, the bar's open. You know, fans were back in the mega store. The club were back in business. Great to see us up and fully running again. You know, so many people's jobs put at risk, etc. A lot of uncertainty for a lot of staff members at the club. And yeah, it's great to see us back open again. And Todd Boehly, the owner, was at the bridge today, as was Marina Granovskaya. I've seen a lot of people on socials uploading pictures at the bridge with those two. So I'm not sure what was going on there. But yeah, George, first things first, mate. Good to have you on board. Delighted today, mate. Megastore back open. The bar's back open. The restaurant's back open, etc. How good is it now that I was just saying, like, after all that uncertainty, a lot of uncertainty for people's jobs, etc., that the club's now fully up and running again?
Yeah, I mean, thank God for that. For those people who work at the clubs, you forget that it's based on those small people that make the club function day in, day out. So for those people, must have been a long day coming. But I mean, I'm looking forward to the new kit reveal and seeing how many fucking idiots buy that for 80 quid or whatever it is. Because from the leaked ones that I've seen, I think that megastore is going to be bloody empty because they look shocking. But no, in answer to your question, I think it's nice because you know that it is the staff, it's all the people in the background that make the club tick, and they'd been itching to get back, and it's not their fault at the end of the day. No. So yeah, thank God for that. With the ownership's done, we can finally get on to doing things now and crack on for a new start of the new season.
Yeah, mate, 100%. You know, now that we're back open for business, it means that, you know, transfers can be done and we need to sign a lot of players and we also need to get rid of players. You know, we've already been linked with a lot of players, you know, particularly at the back, the likes of Jules Koundé, Koulibaly at Napoli, linked with forward players as well, the likes of Darwin Núñez, Christian Nkunku, and Raheem Sterling as well, which I hope doesn't happen. But yeah, it's exciting times ahead. You know, it's always great in a summer transfer window when the rumours start doing the rounds. New players come in, you get rid of ones that you're happy to see the back of. And today we're going to do a little ranking system, a little tiered list for the current squad of whether we would keep, loan or sell. So I'm going to bring it up on the screen now. I've got a few more categories than just keep, loan, sell. Kind of got an untouchable category, keep, final chance, like last chance saloon, squad depth option, and then loan and sell. So, George, let's kick things off with the goalkeepers then. We'll start with the third choice goalkeeper, Marcus Bettinelli. He played one match against Chesterfield. I think that's the only game he's played. Third choice keeper, basically just there for vibes and banter, really. They're hardly ever going to play. Bettinelli, I guess just squad depth, you go straight in that. Couldn't be more simple. I mean, what do you reckon it's like being a third choice goalkeeper? It's a bit of a joke, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what you do as a third choice goalkeeper. It must be so difficult. Other than just training every day and being prepared for the worst case scenario. But
you might play for the 23s.
I mean, we saw something very rare that we actually saw him play for the first.
Yeah, we did. We saw it. The only game he's played, mate, against, I think, Chesterfield in the Cup. The only one he's played. And he still let a goal in.
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty much it's probably the most cushy role you can have in a football club, getting paid weekly. Thousands of pounds.
You've got Scott Carson at City, third choice keeper. He's about 40 odd now. He's at the Etihad just chilling with all these unbelievable players. Third choice keeper.
Yeah. But then it's always going to be difficult because you either decide to be at a top club and accept you're going to be third choice, or you go and play football. You know, he'd probably be somewhere in, you know, the Championship, League One sort of level if he wanted a first choice spot. So this is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
But you know, that comes down to what you want to do. But for me, squad depth. You don't change your goalkeepers unless you absolutely have to.
No, so, and a third choice keeper, you're not expecting to use them. So yeah, he'd just be in there for squad depth. Moving on to our backup keeper, then obviously came in for a lot of money, £75 million. Kepa. Now, to be fair, I think in fairness to Kepa, mate, in the games that he's played this season, I think he's done really well. Obviously, massive disappointment in the Carabao Cup final. He comes on for the shootout. Unfortunately, couldn't save any and then skies his penalty over the bar. But I mean, other than that, I think the games he's played under Tuchel, I think he's done really well, and he's stepped up and shown he can be counted on. However, he's not the first choice keeper. He's on big wages, and it would make sense to ship him on. You know, he's going to want to be playing first team football. It's a World Cup year. He'll want to get in the Spain squad for that tournament. It's probably best for both parties, George, that, you know, Kepa moves on for his own career. And from a financial perspective for Chelsea as well, it's too expensive in wages to have him as a backup choice.
Yeah, we discussed this on a show a few months ago, didn't we? And despite having the luxury of pretty much having 2 first-choice quality goalkeepers in our team, I do think it's in the club's interest and his own that we ship him on. I think the wage bill is enormous, and he's too good to be a number 2. It's as simple as that. Especially for his age, he should be playing first team football week in, week out, really. I mean, the only other really good goalkeeper we had when we had probably arguably best 3 was when we had Kudicini behind Cech. But even then, Kudicini was getting a lot older then. Yeah. So I think for his age, he needs to go. And I don't know how much money we'd get from him, to be honest, but it's a difficult one to even... Could create a headache getting rid of him and having to find another number 2. It's not the easiest position to fill in the market.
It's not an easy position. I mean, you look at older goalkeepers. I mean, Spurs, for example, just signed Fraser Forster from Southampton as a backup keeper. Again, it's a hard one to go, because do you go with someone kind of towards the end of their career, or do you go with someone that's like a little bit more, up and coming, but they might not be happy being a number 2. It's hard to find that balance, because as a number 2 keeper, you're basically accepting that, look, I'm not going to play very much. I'll get a few cup games and I'll be there if someone gets injured. Like, it's a difficult one to fill in there position-wise, and it can be an important position as well.
Yeah, well, this is why it's a dangerous one, because you do have to prepare that second choice goalkeeper for some action. I mean, if Mendy, touch wood, got injured, then you really need someone of ability to step up. And we're not talking about a team that's just playing league games. We're talking about a team that want to compete on all fronts and win trophies. And to do that, you do need a very decent number 2. I don't know who's available, but again, I think for the club's interest, I think for his own interests, I would like to see Kepa move on. That's the most important. If he wants to stay as a number 2, fantastic. But I honestly think if I was Kepa personally, or I was in charge of who goes, I think he would be one I'd be looking to ship off, to be honest.
Yeah, and to be honest, mate, I think if we got £30 million for him, I think we just have to suck it up, accept we'll take the hit on it, and just move him on. I think we've got to accept now that the fact we signed so many players for a high fee, we're not going to get that money back or anywhere near it. We just need to accept that, stop asking for inflated prices for players we're trying to get rid of, and just take the hits on the chin, free up those wages and use it to reinvest in the squad. But yeah, I think it's best that Kepa moves on. Moving on to Mendy then, George. Obviously, he's going to stay, but this season, not as good as last season. I thought he started the season well, but he looks a little bit shaky second half of the season. Quite a few errors creeping in. Distribution's poor, still needs improving. His penalty saving needs to improve as well, despite saving Mane in the shootout. Some high-profile errors, particularly that one against Real Madrid in the first leg at the bridge for the Benzema. This is a big season for him, George. I mean, I might say something that could be a little bit ridiculous and maybe slightly unpopular, but I'm prepared to go and say that I think we could do better than him. I actually do. I'm not saying he's a bad keeper. I think he's a great goalkeeper, but part of me just feels that I think we could do a little bit better. Maybe we could. I'm not saying we're going to go and sign a new first choice keeper this summer or next summer, but I think in the next 2 years, mate, I think we can do better than Mendy.
I am with you, because I'm still not sure. I think I'm more certain than I was that he's a better goalkeeper all round than Kepa is.
Yeah,
but there are still parts in Kepa's game that I think Mendy should be at that level, and he's still not someone that I would rely on. And I know we've been very blessed with some of the best goalkeepers, if not we've had the best in the Premier League in Petr Cech. Very hard to replace. And he has shown incredible shot stopping before. I mean, the save he made in that League Cup final against Liverpool
from Mane was unbelievable.
Ridiculous. The game away at Brentford particularly stands out for me as well. Obviously, Champions League final a few years ago, he was outstanding as well. but he's an investment, and I do have faith in Petr Cech. He must have recruited him, and
Yeah.
if anyone's going to know about goalkeeping, it's him. So I do have faith that he will come good eventually. Goalkeepers do tend to get better with age. He's still fairly young, but I agree, mate. I think there's still, at the moment, there are better goalkeepers around, and if you're looking to win titles, you've got to start with who's the best goalkeeper. Do we have the best goalkeeper in the league? No, I
No.
don't think we do. So you've got to look around. You've got to have the best in that spine if you want to really compete. And obviously he'll stay, but I do get your comments. I do agree.
Mate, I don't think he's untouchable. I'll put him in the keep section.
No, he's not untouchable. Definitely not
No,
untouchable.
in the keep section. Right, let's move on to the defence then, mate. Obviously, Rudiger and Christensen both gone, so we won't do them. Let's start with Malang Sarr. Obviously, he came in that summer under Lampard with the Werner Havertz signing. He spent a season on loan at Porto, and then he came back into the squad this season. I don't think any of us were really expecting to see him play at all. He played a lot more than he was expecting to, and I reckon a lot more than Tuchel was probably wanting to use him. Injuries, COVID, etc. I felt he was pretty useful in and around that Christmas, start of the New Year period. We had a few good games, but as the season went on and he played a few more times, it was kind of exposed that he's not really at this level. And I think he's one of those that was signed on a free transfer very much to sell on for a profit. I don't think it makes sense to keep him or loan him. I would personally sell him, but it's just about finding a taker. I'm sure we could find a taker, but George, you very much in the case of would you say loan or sell? I mean, I could imagine he'd probably go on loan, but would you sell him?
It's like a game show, isn't it? With all these
Yeah.
tiers. I would be tempted to loan him.
Yeah.
I think the age, and he did show some promise in some games, but I do agree he's not the answer going forward. And out of courtesy, I would say, look, let's try and find a club that will take him for a loan, because that's probably, I doubt we're going to get a fee for him. I don't think many people are going to actually pay to have Malang Sarr on their books. So I would say, I'd say I would personally put him in the loan category, because he, I think he just needs some more football to see what he's really about.
Yeah, stick him on loan. If we can get a fee for him, then I think that would be great. But this is the problem, though, with these players that aren't great on high wages at Chelsea. It's going to be hard to shift some of these guys on. It actually is. It's all very well saying I'll sell these players, but actually it's going to be tough to find takers for them at a price that we think is acceptable, and for someone that's prepared to pay the wages, or they've got to be prepared to take a wage cut. Because as much as we might not like it, those players are perfectly entitled to sit there and see their contracts out and pick their money up. As much as it might not sit well with the fans, they're well within their rights to do that. And I think we will find it tricky to shift some of these deadwood players on. But yeah, moving on from Malang Sarr, let's go to Cesar Azpilicueta. Now, club legend. He's been here for over 10 years, won it all. Contract's expiring. He has got an option to extend, but he's also got a 2+1 on the table from Barcelona. Obviously, we're losing a lot of experience in Christensen and Rudiger. We're losing defenders. George, this is a tricky one. I mean, I'd like to keep him around for experience around the dressing room and just for some depth because of the sheer amount of defenders we're losing. But at the same time, part of me thinks I don't want to see him at wing back. The legs are gone. The performance level just wasn't there this season for him in that position. And I also feel that, for the service he's put in at the club, he deserves to decide whether he wants to stay or go. But it's a tricky one, though, because with the amount of players we're losing at the back, you'd be tempted to keep him for squad depth. But then you'd also, we wouldn't be, it would be selling, I suppose. We'd be getting rid of him, but we get no fee for him. It's a tricky one with Aspie, isn't it?
Yeah, I think my opinion, if Rudiger stayed, if we managed to tie that up, I would have been tempted to just put him straight in the sell category. But because of the situation, like you've just pointed out, we've lost a couple of defenders. You are having quite a risk to change so many people in a back line in one window. I agree with the wing-back situation. I think for leadership and for his player management in the dressing room, I think he's got some value there. And he still does put in good, decent performances. But I agree. I think we're at a point now where we need to reinvest and look for either younger talent or someone who's just a bit fresher, new ideas, someone who can offer something a little bit different. He's done everything at the club, and I think for him, he should move on. I'm in the middle though, mate. I do think squad. I'm tempted to put him in that squad depth category for now.
Yeah, but might move him to sell. I mean, I might if we bring in some defenders in the next couple of weeks, and Aspie's still not decided on his future. We get some bodies in, then I'm prepared. Then I'll definitely put him in the sell. But as it remains, we've not brought any defenders in yet. I'll be more inclined to keep him just for a squad depth role. But again, it's up to he's earned the right to decide if he wants to stay or go. But I think with the current situation we're in, we should probably just use him for that squad depth. Let's move on then, mate. Let's go with Thiago Silva next. Phenomenal. He'll be 38 years of age come next season. He's been fantastic. He'll be going into his third season at the club. Giorgio, this season, though, for Thiago Silva, played the most games I think he's played in his career. At 38 years of age, that's a big ask to try and get him to do that again, isn't it?
I think we're running the risk of putting him on a too high a pedestal for next season. I think he's going to find it tough next year, not just because of his age, but you look at how good Rudiger was, and he was the one who provided the energy and the pace in that back line. You've lost him now. It's going to be very critical who plays alongside Thiago Silva. Has he got the pace and the ability to go and meet the ball? Because Thiago Silva's just going to play that sweeping role. He hasn't got the pace. And so I think Thiago Silva might find it difficult second season to emulate what he's achieved so far. I'm not saying that we should get rid of him or anything like that, but I just, he's a definite keeper. It's just, I think people have put him on such high praises. I think it's going to be a tough season for him if we don't get that partnership right, and it's got to be the right balance of pace and power, which, it's a struggle.
But would you put him in the untouchable category?
I
think he probably is.
I think he's earned that spot at the moment.
Yeah,
but it's like you said, because he's of his age, it could easily come to January and you're like, oh God, at that age, it can easily turn within literally a summer break. You can suddenly be like not fit at all and can't get it back. But I think he's a bit like a John Terry. He could keep going and play that. He reads the game so well that he doesn't need the pace. And he was so overused last season.
Mate, massively.
Because we were so shit at the back eventually. So I think he's in the untouchable bracket, but it's a year roll. It's a rolling contract for a year. So it's gonna be tough for him to play as many games as he did last season. But he's definitely earned that right to be in the untouchable category. Obviously, Rudiger and Christensen leaving, as I said. Trevor Chalobah then, mate, had a breakthrough season, 22 years of age, I believe. Played 30 games this season, which I think is really good for someone that's just broken into the squad for the first time. I would have liked to have seen him play a bit more towards the end of the season, but really promising from Trevor. Shows that he belongs at this level and he can be a really important player going forward. How impressed are you with Chalobah's, debut season in the first team? Very impressed. Very impressed. I think he took to it really well. He showed both sides of the coin, didn't he? He showed areas where he really took on to scored a few goals, took his debut fantastically well, which is not easy. And the amount of games he played, I thought you could add them all up and probably count the mistakes on one hand. But then you did also see the frailties and the decision making that all young players struggle initially in their careers. So, no, I was impressed. And I think for me, he just sticks in that keep category. I think he'll get whether he gets more or less games, I'm not sure. Again, it depends on the recruitment going into the window. But I would expect him. He's a good squad player. But I think he's above that kind of squad depth bracket. I think he's more of a player that will be a regular rotator.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. Let's move on to Marcos Alonso, everyone's favourite. Shit at defending, but good at going forward and putting the ball in the net and coming up with moments. It kind of sums his career up. He very much wants to go back to Spain. He's made that a priority. He's agreed personal terms with Barcelona on a contract. We just got to negotiate a fee. Chelsea supposedly want 20 million euros for him. He's got a year left on his contract. I'm not sure if that's asking a bit much of him at his age, 31 years of age, 1 year left. We need to make sure we don't price ourselves out of selling him. It very much looks like he's going to move on. I think it's the right decision. Refresh it, bring someone younger in that can be, that can be second choice to Chilwell, or can step in as equal quality, or just a touch below. But George, I think it's very much time for Marcos Alonso's Chelsea career to end, I guess.
Yeah, it's what I do like Alonso a lot. I've got a soft spot for him. He's one of those players that I would just never want to sell until he wants to go, because I do think he has a lot to value. I think he's a great number 2, and as much as he probably thinks he's a number 1, I think if I'm taking my non-biased hat off, I think we have to look forward, and I think we've had it with Alonso. He's won titles with us. He's done his job, but I think ultimately he's got to that age now where he's not going to get any better in the departments that we need to improve in.
Just going to get worse.
Yeah, and we're only going to look back at next season and we have him, let's say, and he decides to stay, and we're like, oh, for fuck's sake, he's done the same shit again and again and again. And as much as he's great going forward and all the rest of it, and he'll have more than a handful of great games next season if he stayed. We've got to look forward.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. That moves us on to Ben Chilwell. Obviously, it was great to see him get a couple minutes at the end against Watford. Still a long road to recovery. Next season, I'm not sure if it was down to me. I probably wouldn't play him until maybe after the World Cup. I don't know how much of a part he's going to play in the opening games of the season in that lead up to the World Cup. But it's so important we don't rush him back, isn't it? Not to put that same level of expectation on him when he was playing before he got injured. This is going to take a long time for Chile to get back up to speed. And it also makes it really important that we actually sign a left wing back or a left back that can, take on the mantle at the start of the season and perform to a high level, because Chile is not going to be ready for a while. And it's going to take him a good few weeks to get back up to speed when he's playing again.
Well, this is why it's one of the most important windows, mate. And just from doing this, you can see how much work there is to be done and how the balance needs to be so right. Because again, you're looking for a number 2 left back, long term, but short term, you really want a first choice, because we can't start the season thinking, oh, let's just get a casual left back in, because you'll lose the ground in the league and you'll be out of cups before Chilwell's really firing. And then what? Then you've only got yourself to blame that you've brought in, let's say, an Emerson level left back to play half a season. It's not good.
This Emerson thing, right, is irritating, because people saying that Tuchel likes Emerson. Well, he clearly doesn't, because he thought Alonso was better than him, which is why Emerson went out on loan. Like, if he rated Emerson that much, he wouldn't have sent him on loan. Like, Emerson's not going to cut it. I really hope it's not Emerson that ends up with that second spot, because he's not good enough. I'm sorry, he just isn't good enough. And
I would like someone like a Cucurella.
Yeah, Cucurella. Yeah, I think that would be decent. But George Chile, I guess, it's going to. Don't want to put pressure on him. Just low level of expectation, and just hopefully he can get back to the level he was playing at. There's no guarantee after these injuries that you do reach that level again. I don't want to be sort of doom and gloom, but you've got to be realistic that it can be hard to hit those heights again. But I'm sure he can definitely do it. But he very much goes in the untouchable category, I'd say.
He's still a world class left back, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he definitely is. And moving on to the other side, he's definitely going to be in the untouchable category. Reece James, a really good season last season, by all accounts, though, and his own admission, injured too much. I guess that's the only thing that we'd like to see improve from Reece's perspective, is his injury record. I think he missed too many games last season, really, which did affect how he performed. But George, obviously, he's in the untouchable category. How important is it that the new owners sit down with him and obviously Mason Mount as well, and offer them new terms and get them tied down for the next few years, just to put any doubt to bed?
Straight away. And I don't understand why there seems to be, not just with Chelsea, all clubs seem to just let top class players just run their contracts down. Just that should be the first thing you do as an owner or a new manager. Say, right, basically, they could even do this in the boardroom. Come up with your untouchable list and say, right, I'll bring them in the office tomorrow and I will get them tied down for 4 or 5 years, and then that's that sorted. I don't have to worry about that. Of course, contracts mean nothing these days anyway, but because of the money involved, they can just buy themselves out. But still, just get him down. We do not want to lose Reece James to someone like a Real Madrid or anyone like that in the near future, because Chelsea aren't ambitious enough and don't want to, tie these players down. It's nonsense. Yeah, no, it is nonsense. He very much, he'll be offered a new deal. Could be a future captain for sure.
and very much untouchable. And it's great to see that, he's so comfortable in two positions, right wing back, and obviously as a right-sided centre-back in the three. He's filled in there and done very well on occasions as well. So he's not only is he world-class in his actual position, he's also can perform to a very good level in another position, which is really useful. And again, with Reece being injured, it's gone to show that we need proper depth in that right wing back slot as well, because we've had to use the likes of an aging Aspie there, Callum Hudson-Odoi and Christian Pulisic at times there. That's not cutting it. It just isn't. So it goes to show that we lack depth in that area as well. But I think that rounds out the defenders, because obviously, the ones that have left I've not bothered doing. Mate, let's move into midfield then. Jorginho, out of contract at the end of next season, along with N'Golo Kante. He, according to his agent, he would like to extend. There's obviously interest from Italy. He's never hidden his desire to go and play there. This is I think he's done very well for the club. He's been a great servant. I think he's a top footballer. But this is very much getting to the point now where Jorginho in his 30s, we don't want to lose another player for nothing. We need to start looking to the future, George, don't we? The likes of Conor Gallagher coming back, potentially Billy Gilmore. We've got Loftus-Cheek in there still. We might sign a Declan Rice or someone else. It's going to get congested there. And ruthless decisions are going to have to be made. And if it was down to me, mate, as much as I like Jorginho, I'd be selling him. I think we've got to look to the future and make some tough decisions.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's necessarily that tough a decision. I think on my list, I think he's a good player. Again, great. Creates some great performances, but ultimately he's getting towards that bracket that age. What does he really offer? Chelsea want to be a bit more attacking, a bit more inspiring, and he's not that sort of player. And I don't think I'd be that disappointed if I saw the back of him. And I think we could get quite a nice little bit of money for him. So, obviously, I know you've done a separate one on transfers in, but I'd be doing everything in my power to get Rice to fill in that position. Yeah. And therefore, we need to offload quite a few in that area. And Jorginho is certainly one on that list. So for me, he goes in that sell category.
Yeah, I would agree, mate. Do you think it got to the point now as well, mate, that like going into the final year, we need to have a conversation this summer and be like, look, if you're not planning to extend, we don't want to lose you for a free. You're going to be sold this summer. I think you've got to be like that with players, because we don't want to be in a position where we could lose Jorginho and Kante, two top players, for nothing again.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, isn't it, mate? I think decisions have got to be taken that Chelsea don't normally take, or are not very good at taking, where we've got to be ruthless. And like Man City are, like Liverpool are, when Pep arrived, Joe Hart, number one keeper, great goalkeeper, England's number one, straight away I was like, Joe, I don't want you anymore. He was gone. £40 million centre forward in Christian Benteke at Liverpool. Klopp comes in, don't want you. See you later. I think we've got to start being a bit ruthless. And the fact of the matter is that it's getting over congested in that midfield area. We need to refresh it. And Jorginho's getting to an age now where he's probably diminishing a little bit. He's got a desire to go back to Italy at some point. We don't want to lose him for free. I'm sorry. I think we've got to sell him and move on. I really do. But that brings me to the next player, George, N'Golo Kante. I think Tuchel's clear that he'd like to keep him. There's a conflicting report saying that, Kante might be keen to try something different, possibly, but he wouldn't be against extending either. George, Kante, fitness issues again this season, missed far too many games. The performance levels have not been there. He puts in the odd good performance of a top level, say every 1 in 5 or 6 games now, which isn't really good enough. This again is another tricky decision to make, isn't it? For me, I would have him as squad depth potentially, but I equally, mate, I wouldn't be gutted if we sold him. I really wouldn't.
Not on the back of last year, but I still think giving him to any sort of rivals off the table across Europe, and only the best teams in Europe are going to take him. So I think he only strengthens those big teams around Europe and makes us weaker. So if you look at it in that sense, I think he's just, you've got to play carefully. I think he's a squad player now. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
And look, we're more than happy to be on this channel and be wrong about that. He could more than happy prove me wrong, blitz it, be a first team player and show me the class that he's shown all the way through his Chelsea career. But for me, looking forward, I don't think he's bad enough to sell, but I also think
he shouldn't be a mainstay of the team anymore. He should very
no.
much be a rotation option, for sure. Given his injury record as well. Now, I mean, would you be happy for him to sign like a 1-year extension or maybe reduced terms or same money?
I just feel a bit hesitant to put him in the sell category because I know if someone else took him, you'd be like, "Oh God, why did we do that?" I mean,
squad depth I think is fair, but again, as I said, mate, if he's not going to sign a new deal, I'd sell him this summer so we don't lose him for nothing. Like,
yeah, I suppose.
I think you've just got how you've got to look. One player, mate, that's certainly going in the sell category. Ross Barkley. I mean,
He's untouchable, mate. He's untouchable.
No, mate.
Yeah. Untouchable because no one wants him.
Yeah, mate. He is awful. I mean, I know he like had a couple of moments this season, scored in the cup final penalty shootout. But I mean, I don't know if his contract's expired or not. But I mean, mate, do you think we can get any takers for him?
I think you can. I know it wasn't him. It was a very similar kind of player, but Danny Drinkwater who had that lovely message, and I do feel a little bit for Ross because I think he's been very professional. I think there's one story where he got caught out a little bit. He was at a nightclub or whatever and got a bit pissed or whatever. But other than that, he doesn't come out and be like, "Oh, I should be starting all this." He's got his head down, still comes on, plays his part. He has shown moments of magic. I remember that goal he scored against Liverpool in the cup semi. Outrageous.
He did. Yeah.
And he there's no doubt in his ability. He's got ability, but he's just one of those players that's just unfortunately he's in a position in the area of the pitch that you could name easily like 50, 100 players that are better than him. And
mate, I think he's one of them that's never reached his potential. He was good when he's good when he was really young, and has just got no better, basically.
No. I mean, do Everton miss Ross Barkley? No,
absolutely not. Yeah, mate, it's time to sell anything we can get from even a couple of 50p's or whatever. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. Any spare change, anything anyone's prepared to give, just get rid. It's time to move on. Yeah, mate.
Link below.
Just Giving page. I'll pop it in the description so people can donate to get rid of him. Moving away, obviously, Sal Niguez is gone. Thank God for that. We won't be making that deal permanent. George, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I really like Ruben. I know you're a fan of his as well. I think he's done well at times this season, but then at other times, I feel that he's not taken the opportunities when he's been given them or made the most of them. Conor Gallagher's coming back. Gilmore's coming back, potentially. We're going to look to sign someone in the midfield. It's getting very congested there. I would like to keep Ruben, but I don't know. Do you think he's in? Do you think I'd keep him for squad depth probably because we can't bring in loads of players in one window. It's going to take a number of windows. But would you very much say that Ruben's in kind of final chance?
Yeah, I think I'm agreeing with you. I think we should get one in that final chance category. And I hate to say it because obviously he's a player that I admire a lot and said it loads of times on the channel. He's got attributes that are very rare, like his physical presence in the middle of the park. His ability to carry the ball is almost unrivaled in that position if you look across the Premier League. But he has had a lot of chances in a Chelsea shirt, more than most, and he still hasn't wowed me to say, look, he's had enough chances to say, look, you could have a first team position if he really took them. And with Conor Gallagher coming back especially, it is getting a little bit congestion. You have to decide which one's got the most potential, and you'd have to say Gallagher's probably taken his chance a little bit more in the shorter space of time. He hasn't done it in a Chelsea shirt yet, of course, but I think I honestly think he's in final chance. I really do.
Yeah, no, I would agree, mate. You were on him. There's not a picture of him down here, but whilst you mentioned him, Conor Gallagher, he had a good loan spell at Palace. He did tail off a bit towards the end of the season, didn't contribute many goals in the season. I don't think he contributed any goal contributions in his last 10, 15 games or something like that. There's a bit of a tail off compared to the start of the season. He's young. I think he's 20 years of age. He's an England international now. He's had a great season there, or great first half of the season. Tuchel's going to look at him in pre-season. It's all very well doing it for Crystal Palace. It's a completely different challenge doing it for a top side like Chelsea. He'll be looked at in pre-season, George. Do you think this is one where, say Chelsea got offered £50 million by a Crystal Palace or something like that, they look to sell? I mean, I think for me, Gallagher, I would probably do squad depth. But having said that, if an offer came in, 40, £50 million, yeah, I think it'll be very hard to turn that sort of money down.
Yeah, and we've seen it before with Chelsea. I would be tempted to put him in the loan category. I think you could easily just find him another club in the Premier League that would take him for another year.
Send him on another Premier League loan.
Well,
yeah,
like you said, he's 20. Again, if we're looking at trying to close the gap, he's not going to start for Chelsea, is he? Let's be realistic. Of course, we'd love him to come back. Tuchel loves him, starts the Premier League season and does wonders, but I can't see it. Are we really going to be closing that gap with a Gallagher and Kovacic combo? I can't see it at all. So he's got two options. He sits on the bench, waits for his chance, or you give him another Premier League club to go on for next season. I don't think we're going to sell him. Yeah. I don't think we're going to sell him. So
I'll put him squad depth. I think squad depth. But again, depending on who comes in and out, that might change my opinion to loan. But as things stand, I'd use him as squad depth next season. Another player, George, I know you're a big fan of him, Billy Gilmour.
Yeah, love him. We're watching him now, mate.
Really, really disappointing loan spell at Norwich. It just didn't work out for him at all. Almost a bit of a forgotten man. For me, I just don't think he's quite good enough for Chelsea. I can't see him being the kind of player that is going to, be the difference at Chelsea, dominating that midfield. I just can't see it. Squad depth, potentially. For me, I would be looking at another loan next season. Maybe, it's been reported possibly Rangers in Scotland as a loan, or he needs another Premier League loan where he's actually going to get a proper chance, because that Norwich one just doesn't happen. But for you, George, very much in the loan section for Gilmour?
Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with younger players just having more first-team game time elsewhere, get experience, all the rest of it. And I really like him as a player. I think he's very intelligent for his age, very mature for his age. But again, mate, if we're gonna try and close the gap, as much as we want the youth team players to develop and come through and all the rest of it, it's a nice story, but it's not. It's no secret that Pep Guardiola's won what he's won because he's given kids a chance. He hasn't really, has he? He buys ready-made champions, and that's what you do to win leagues, unfortunately.
And that's what Klopp does as well, very. A few more kids get a chance, but you don't look at the benches at Liverpool and City or the starting 11s and see kids in it.
Well, if he's going, if we're saying, Gilmour and Gallagher should start for Chelsea, then you would get, Jones at Liverpool and all the rest of it playing for them. So I don't, it's just not going to happen, is it? So
I think another Premier League
loan for me, yeah.
Yeah, I think a Premier League loan would be beneficial. Let's move on, mate. Mateo Kovacic, probably Chelsea's standout midfield player this season. Very good. He's come a long way since his initial loan spell that season from Real Madrid, where I thought it was awful, wanted to get rid of him. But ever since we signed him permanently, year on year, he's improved. And he's probably our most important midfield player, George. I wouldn't say he was untouchable, but he's very much in that keep category.
Yes, I would say he's in the keep category. Not untouchable, because I still think you could, if you were going to be a risk taker and completely change the squad in one window, I think you could say, right, we'll get Kovacic out and bring in someone who's of better quality, perhaps. Arguably, but I think there's a no-brainer, really. He's got to stay. We build around him.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. Whether that's in a two-man midfield or a three-man midfield. I mean, people in the chat disagreeing, thinking he's untouchable. I don't know. It depends what we go with. If it's a three-man midfield, if it's a two-man midfield. But again, he's another one that just needs to improve his fitness record, because he missed a lot of games last season through injury as well. So if he can improve on that and push on again, then I just don't think he's untouchable for me. He's definitely keep, and he's very important. But yeah, I wouldn't say he was untouchable in my opinion. But he's definitely a keep.
Yeah, I just don't know for Kovacic. I just still don't know what midfielder he is. I don't know whether he's
he doesn't score a lot of goals, does he? He's not really a defensive midfield player, but he's more like a box-to-box player, really. But he doesn't really have. He's not got a very good output, though, in terms of goals and assists. So it's a weird one. He's really important, but then he doesn't contribute much in terms of goal contributions. It's a funny one to explain, really, isn't it? Because he's so important to how we play, yet there's not an awful lot of end product, as it were, in the way of goals and assists. It's a bit of a strange one to try and explain, but he's really important to how we play. And next season, again, he'll need to step it up another level and just prove how important he is to us. I guess we'll count. I guess, mate, we'll classify Mason Mount in midfield. Let's classify him as a midfielder, mate. Simple, in the untouchable category. The only consistent forward this season, 29 goal contributions in all competitions. Again, numbers improved, output improved big time, which was one of my criticisms of him. Needed to improve that output. He's definitely done that. He's been the only forward player that's got any ounce of consistency at all. And he's someone that we can build around for the future, whether that's part of the front line, so whether that we switch to a 3-man midfield and he plays as a number 8. We need to offer him a new contract, get him tied down. But yeah, George, really big season from Mount this season just gone. Then it's going to be important that he kicks on again next season.
Well, he's part of the spine. I mean, he is in that untouchable category for that reason. He could be easily Chelsea legend, stay for his whole career, be a future captain. I mean, he's that sort of level already. Again, he gets tarnished with the Frank Lampard brush, but he's a completely different player.
Yeah,
and arguably at his age compared to what Frank was at his age, probably doing better.
He probably is.
So, can you imagine when he's a more mature midfielder, that 28, 29 category? I mean, we could have an absolute worldie on our hands. So he's untouchable, there's no doubt.
Yeah, no, 100%. Again, finishing needs to improve, but that could be said for the same of virtually the whole team, pretty much, bar a couple. But yeah, no, definitely untouchable. And again, another big season ahead for him. It'd be interesting to see whether he stays in the front line, if we stick with the same system or not. Would he drop back into mid? I'd like to see him play as a number 8. I think he probably is a number 8, but he's more of a midfield player playing as a forward. But yeah, it's certainly untouchable. This now is probably going to be a lot of final chance and get rid for the few here. If we're being perfectly honest, right? Who should we start with here? Let's start with Kai Havertz. Undoubted ability, coming for big money. 2 seasons that is now that he's been at the club. He's given us some good moments for sure. Champions League winning goal, Club World Cup winning goal. Unfortunately, though, in terms of form and consistency, there's been none. He's been a moments player, and for the amount of money we've paid and what we expect from him in 2 seasons, other than those great moments, I have to say, other than a 3-week spell sort of through March, first week of April, he's massively under-delivered for me. And I think now going into his 3rd season, if his season doesn't improve with his output and stuff, I think he's in a final chance situation here next season.
It's like being in a school office, isn't it? Being on school report or something.
I honestly think it's the final chance now. He's had 2 seasons, but going into his 3rd season, look, there's undoubted ability there, but we haven't seen anything that makes us think we've had our money's worth from someone that's meant to be one of the best players on the planet up and coming.
It's weird though, because I've spoken to a lot of Chelsea fans and been on some forums about him, and people do love him.
I like him, but for me, mate, he's not delivered.
The only reason I put him in the keep is because I think he's, out of all the ones that are left, I think he's delivered the most. In terms of his ability to perform in moments and goals. I mean, I know people say it, but it's the same with Torres, isn't it? He pretty much repaid his transfer fee with that goal at Barcelona alone, and Havertz done the same. I know that's a bit ridiculous.
Do you not think he needs to offer so much more, just in general, in terms of consistency and output? Because for a player of his money, the goals, the output numbers are poor. They just are. I mean,
am I still there?
Yeah, you're still there, mate. What do you reckon, mate? The output numbers aren't good enough. Yeah, all good, mate. Output numbers aren't good enough. George will be back in a sec. Kai Havertz, for me, it seems a bit. I think it's a bit harsh to say. I don't know if it's harsh or not to say final chance for Kai Havertz, but I don't know. It's a tricky one. I think if he has another season next season, like the one he's just had, where the output numbers aren't that great and there's not really been a noticeable improvement in his performance levels, then do you know what? I think keep. But if we're having the same conversation this time next season, if there's not a better season next season, then yeah, I think Kai Havertz, if we're having the same conversation next season, then he would very much Hello, mate. Sorry. Yeah, I was just saying, mate.
Sorry,
I've
mate.
moved him into. Yeah, it's all good, mate. I've moved him into the keep section. Just I think if we're having the same conversation at the end of next season, where he's not really kicked on, there's not really been a noticeable improvement in his output or his goal numbers, then I think he'll be in his final chance saloon next season. But going into his third season, this is a really important season for him now, isn't it? 3 years, he's got to get minimum of 10 goals in the league. He has to.
Yeah, so
it's not. I mean, that's not even that much to ask. 10 Premier League goals. I mean, seriously, like it's ridiculous, really.
Yeah, you can make a case for all of the front line. Contribute more. It's difficult because I think Tuchel still, because of the interchanging, people still don't. It's not easy as a player when you still don't know where you're supposed to be playing. I know he played up front for quite a handful of games.
Yeah,
but still probably doesn't know where he's playing, and if the manager doesn't, then the player doesn't. So I agree. I think keeps fair for now, but then if he has another season like last season, then he goes into the final chance category, and then that final chance almost is a brackets one window opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. Let's move on to Callum Hudson-Odoi then, mate. Again, another player, still young. He's been plagued by injuries. Through towards the tail end of the season. We haven't seen him feature for quite a while at the back end of the season. He had that moment at the start of the season where he was playing well. He had that run of 8 or 9 games that he started in a row and, showed some promise there. For me, he's still our most direct wide man in terms of someone that runs at players and takes players on. And he's got great delivery. But for me, there's too many inconsistencies in Callum's game. And that needs to improve. He's still young. I just don't really, if we bring in reinforcements, and I don't really know where he gets enough minutes, Callum, I'd be tempted to loan him out. I mean, where do you stand on Hudson-Odoi? Because I do think it can work at Chelsea. And I think there's a great player in there. We just haven't really seen it enough. Maybe going away to another club like a Borussia Dortmund that have been linked in the past for a loan, maybe to play like a full season, the majority of the games, it might do him the world of good.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to sell him, but he's a bit of a head scratcher, isn't he? Because he, like you said, he doesn't get the consistency in the game time because he's not good enough. Squad depth, if he's prepared to, again, sit on the bench, wait for his chance, but then we're just going to see the same product. I think he does need that risk of saying, go to another country, get his first team place and try and see what we've got on our hands, whether he's going to develop. Because he is young, but again, it's a position for a top club where you are easily replaceable with someone better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think a loan would be sensible, but again, I'm in between that and the squad depth category.
Yeah, no, 100%. Let me just get to a few bits in the chat about Havertz. Yeah, no, he is hard because no idea what his best position is. I think that's fair because I look at him, he's not a midfield player. He's not a number 10 really, and he's not really a wide player either. But then he plays at centre forward. But then you wouldn't put money on Havertz to be like a 15, 20 goals a season forward because he's not. So then what is he? That is the big problem. We got another one here. Havertz missed 12 big chances this season. Yeah, I did see that. I think he missed the most big chances out of all Chelsea forwards. Now, that goes to show that if Havertz can improve his finishing, then he might be a half decent goal scorer. But yeah, it's a big problem. But, for now, keep. But yeah, another season where things don't improve, definitely final chance for next season. Callum Hudson-Odoi loan. George, Timo Werner, fan favourite. He tries hard. £50 million we signed him for. I think he's got 9 or 10 Premier League goals across 2 seasons. He's played a lot of games. It's just not worked out. It's as simple as that for me, and he's got to be sold.
Oh, you said it. For me, obviously, I'm not going to sell him, but I get it. I get it. I wouldn't be, I'm not going to cry about it if he gets sold, put it that way. But I think, again, are we being trying to change too much too soon? Is he worth keeping around for an option, perhaps?
Well, for an option for 2 games against Southampton, which is the only team he's decent against. Mate, we'll keep him for Southampton home and away next season, and that'll do the job.
I like him for the same reasons that all the other fans like him. Agreed, his end product isn't good enough. Agreed, he hasn't returned but what he should have, but no one else has. So that's my only argument for squad depth. But
I just
I'll
don't know.
I'll
I
go with
don't
you.
know.
I'll go with you on the sole category on the basis that he hasn't worked, which is fair.
I just don't know how much money we'd get for him. If we could get 30 million for him, that'd be an absolute steal. I'd even take 25 right now because.
But then if you're only going to get 25 million, isn't he just worth keeping then?
Well, no, because if he can get rid of Werner and bring in someone like Ousmane Dembele on a free, then it's a no-brainer. Werner's on massive wages now. I think it's on over 200k a week. It's ridiculous for someone that's delivered his output, mate. It's awful. It needs to be gone. Just get rid of him. Sell. Done.
Sell. Done.
Just get rid of him. Mate, 3 to go, mate. Let's rattle through these. Hakim Ziyech. This again is a difficult one because at 28, 29, 275k a week apparently Werner's on. Someone said in the chat. Jesus Christ. I mean, fuck it. Bloody hell, mate. It makes me think if I signed for Chelsea, maybe I could get 100k a week, to be fair, if he's on that.
Mate, we could easily be on I reckon we could be on 6 figures if we put...
Mate,
we only have to score 5 each.
5 each, mate, across 2 seasons. I reckon I could have actually done that. No joke.
A couple of pens to get me on some pens.
Yeah. Hakim Ziyech. It's an interesting one, George. Undoubted ability, probably our most technically gifted forward. With his that left foot, he's got the technique is world class. He is a great technician. Problem is, though, for me, Ziyech, I think he's still a bit lightweight. He's improved. Again, not consistent enough. The same with a lot of these players. He's not going to get a loan at his age, I wouldn't have thought. It's very much for me, either if we can get some money for him, I think the club would be tempted to sell if he wants to leave. But again, I would probably keep him for squad depth because we can't get rid of loads of players and we're not going to bring loads in. But having said that, if it was an option to sell Ziyech and bring in Dembele, I'd definitely do it. I mean, George, what are you between? 3 choices really: final chance, squad depth, or sell.
He's probably in the squad depth or keep section for me, just because you're right, mate. I think he's just a luxury player, and sometimes I think sometimes Chelsea there's an extra burden because of the way we play and the way teams play against us.
Yeah, say that again, mate.
Can you hear me, mate?
Yeah, all good. Say it again. Is this one of them that's a bit of a luxury player? I think George's internet's like fucking Werner's finishing. Absolutely shit. Right, Hakim Ziyech. Yeah, technique is really good. It's just not consistent enough. It's the same for everyone. I mean, Clutch, exactly as you said in the chat, squad depth would be great, but as a player, is he going to be okay with that? I know he's not in the Moroccan national team, but at the same time, I think they might have changed managers. It's a World Cup year. He'll want to be playing football. I don't know. It's a squad depth or it's a sell, but I don't know how much money we get for him. I think we paid somewhere between 35 and 40 for him a couple of years ago. Would we get that back for Ziyech? I don't think we would. But it just depends. Mate, I'll just let them know that your Wi-Fi is like Werner's finishing. Shit.
No, it's people keep trying to call me on the blur, so obviously they're disagreeing with my opinions.
They obviously ringing you up to voice the opinions. Ziyech, though, mate, saying, like, it's a tough one, isn't it? Like, it'd be great to have the squad depth, but at his age, would he be happy with that?
But I think you're a product of your own making. Yeah. I think if he's got to accept that he hasn't had a great season, and I think if he was in a team like City, I think you'd probably see him flourish because he's that luxury type player that wants time on the ball and everything else. Sometimes I just think for a player like him, he's probably best suited in another league. But I still think he's in our squad depth category because we can't change everyone.
No, for sure. But having said that, if a decent fee offer come in for him, I think the club would look to sell. Like, I think out of the forward line, the most likely ones to leave are Werner or Ziyech. One of those will definitely leave, if not both, potentially, I feel.
You could probably make a case for any of them, mate, to be honest. Like Hudson-Odoi and Pulisic are not as at risk, I think.
Yeah. Let's move on to Christian Pulisic then. again, another guy. He's only 23 years of age. Obviously, with American owners coming in now, they're going to look to tap into the American market. He's the poster boy of American soccer over there. Undoubted ability. Again, we spent £63 million on this guy. He's shown moments, but I feel like I'm repeating myself with all these forwards. Not had enough consistency. I think he's got real ability, but again, we just don't see it often enough. But he's very much, for me, he's been here a while now. I would say that if he doesn't really deliver next season, for me, mate, I think he's in the final chance category. He's played.
Your office is busy, isn't it? Your office is busy. Mate, final chances.
Mate, how many times? How long has he been here? When did Sarri come? 17 or 18? So what? 18 season, 19, 20.
4 seasons.
He's been here 4-5 seasons, right? It's not been consistent enough. I think he's had quite a few opportunities. Yes, he's been injured a lot, and I do think there's a lot of ability there. I really do think there's a lot of ability there. But what I'm saying is that for the £63 million that we paid, have we had return on our investment? I know that's an open-ended question and it's in interpretation. I did see his interview, Clutch. He was saying that he's happy to stick around for another season, but if he was not a regular next season, then he would look to move on. I think that's fair. I think that's perfectly acceptable thing to say. Thing is, it's between keep and final chance. I wouldn't be looking to actively sell him this summer. That's for sure.
No.
But I do think that if things don't improve next season, then I think it's a final chance this season. 3-4 seasons now. I'd love him to do well because there's so much ability there, but it just doesn't seem to be being realised at the moment. I mean, he'll be one of those players that will leave Chelsea and he'll go and be unbelievable somewhere else. You just know it is. But George, what are you thinking? Keep or final chance? He's definitely not going to be sold because of A, he's a decent player, and B, because of his importance to commercial stuff as well, particularly American market and new owners. So, final chance or keep?
Keep. I'm a bit more patient than you, mate. I think he's...
Well, mate, you still have Werner here for 10 more years, if you could.
Well, no, I just think if you're weighing it up, you're saying get rid of players, but if you're only going to get 20 million for them, what we really going to add? I know obviously we get them off the wage bill, which is huge, but you're only going to have to pay back someone else to come on a huge wage demand at Chelsea anyway.
Yeah, no, of course.
I think he's probably one of our most talented players, Pulisic.
For sure.
I really do believe that. And I think you make a really great point about the American owners coming in specifically have a huge change in probably that decision. I agree, mate. I think keep final chance next season. If he has an iffy season where he doesn't produce, he needs to be getting double figures. We used to criticise Willian so much how shit he was. He produced more than Pulisic has.
Yeah, but it's a consistency. Pulisic needs to be putting up double figures for assists, probably.
Assists,
I'm not saying one or the two needs to be double figures in all comps. It just has to be. I think that's a bare minimum. If you're playing in an attacking position for Chelsea, that's what you've got to deliver. But I think keep, but it's a really important season next year for him. World Cup as well for the US. I think he's captain. I mean, the boys in the chat might correct me, but I'm pretty sure he's captain of the US team as well. It's a big season for him. But mate, let's round out Lukaku. I mean, this is a difficult one in terms of what to do, because let's be perfectly honest, it's not worked out how he expected it to. For sure, he still finishes the club's top scorer. Now, whether you think, that should be bare minimum, regardless of the fact is he scored more goals than anyone else. But having said that, the interview didn't help matters. He didn't deliver. The style of play doesn't suit him for whatever reason, and we haven't really seen anything to suggest that things might improve. I still personally feel that things could work out for Lukaku, but it looks like things could be moving in a direction that a possible loan move to Inter Milan could maybe materialise. But again, it all depends on what Chelsea want to do with him. Lukaku said that he'd like to be a key player at Chelsea next season. He's going to speak to the club, see what the plans are before making a decision on his future. George, do you think that if Lukaku were to leave, Chelsea might look to loan him because they wouldn't be prepared to take such a massive hit on someone they signed less than 12 months ago for £97.5 million? Do you think if he does leave, Lukaku would be a loan deal?
Mate, Lukaku's like my Domino's order last night. Well advertised, supposed to come nice and hot, comes in cold and overpriced. Basically, is what he is. I think he's got the basis of. It's all down to Thomas Tuchel. All down to Thomas Tuchel, because if Thomas Tuchel's got a system where he honestly believes Lukaku is in that system, then he stays.
Yeah.
But you're right. It probably depends on what possible targets. There are a lot of people available that could arguably do a job still as a Chelsea man, whether that's Lewandowski, Dybala. I'm not saying those players are guarantees.
Dybala won't come, but I mean, this is the problem though, George, isn't it? You get rid of Lukaku, but then who comes in that's going to do any better? This is the issue. Who do we go and get? Okay, let's say we loan Lukaku to Inter for the season with a buy option or whatever it might be, or we somehow manage to sell him in a hypothetical situation. Okay, that's fine. He's gone. Who do we get in? Do we bring in another centre forward? Do we try and bring in just a forward player and not really have a proper like focal point at the top end of the pitch? It's a difficult decision to weigh up. It's like you see fans who say, "I'll get rid of him." There's more to it than just get rid of him, because then what happens? Who comes in? How do we play? What do we go with as a forward line? There's a lot of things to be decided.
Yeah, and it's not an easy position to fill. So it's not a case. We can't be in a situation where we sell Lukaku because we think he's shit, and then we go into the season with no recognised centre forward. I mean, it cannot happen for a club like us, and it's not easy. People say, "Oh, we could get Lewandowski." He doesn't want to be. But it's not easy. That doesn't guarantee anything. Doesn't mean he's going to come.
Oh, mate, you guarantee, mate. Lewandowski would come to Chelsea, right? He'd probably score a hat trick against Fulham, and then he'd be shit for the rest of the season.
Yeah, but I mean, anyone. There's not a player out there that you think.
But you look at the players we're linked with, like Christopher Nkunku, who's had a phenomenal season at Leipzig. But again, like, is he the answer? Maybe not. Raheem Sterling. You look at Lewandowski's there, obviously a world-class centre forward, but would it work at Chelsea? Does he fit the system? You look at these attacking players, and like, I don't know what we're going to go with. If we were to get rid of Lukaku, I don't think we'd go with an out-and-out 9. I think we'd very much go with something like Liverpool and City do, where we just got a forward line and all the players just interchange. But Chelsea have never done that before, so I don't really know.
My opinion on Lukaku, and if it was just a case of do you want to sell? Do you want to keep? I sell him. But if I'm thinking from Thomas Tuchel's perspective, and actually a level head, you keep him, because
I think it's a final chance.
If we're basing on what we've just done now, it's unfair to say sell him but give someone like Havertz or anyone else a final chance, because he's only had one season. So on that basis, he deserves to stay for another season. But it's dependent on if the manager doesn't want him in the system or the player wants to go, then you can't keep a player at the club who doesn't want to be here. And I'm not convinced Thomas Tuchel, this team, plays with a system that makes Lukaku a title-winning forward. I can't see it. But it's dangerous. It's dangerous because there's no obvious replacement to bring in that makes it any better.
No, there isn't, and that's the big problem. I would give him one more season just to see what happens. Yeah. But again, having said that, I could easily see that if he wants to leave, then the club will look to get that done, whether it's on loan or whether it's to be sold, and then there's a big decision to be made at the top end of the pitch. But yeah, I mean, that pretty much rounds out the keep and sell. I mean, obviously, Brozier will come back from loan at Southampton. He's a forward. He's tailed off big time, started quite well there. For me, I would look to loan him out, maybe even sell him. If West Ham want him, sell him, get him part of the Declan Rice deal, maybe something along those lines. But Brozier, for me, not good enough to be not good enough for Chelsea. I'm sorry. Not right now. He's not. He could be in a couple of seasons, maybe, but this summer, absolutely not. It's a loan or sell for me for Brozier. But yeah, I think that pretty much rounds out the keep, loan or sell ranking there. I mean, look at it. There's a lot of work to be done. A lot of players need to come in. A lot of players have left. It's going to be an interesting summer. I think the window opens next week at some point. Potentially looking into doing a weekly transfer show on a Friday at some point. So stay tuned for that. Could be something to have throughout the summer window, a Friday transfer roundup of all the stuff that's kind of happened that week. So stay tuned for that, possibly starting next Friday. I just need to try and sort that out and see if people are keen to come on for that. But do stay tuned for that. Guys, as always, thank you so much for getting involved in the chat. Really appreciate all of your input. Please do make sure you smash a like on the stream and subscribe to the channel. Please click that subscribe button. Almost at 500 now. It's a bit of a slow burner to get these last few over the line. So please do click that subscribe button. Get your mates to do it. Take their phones, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. Help us get to that 500 mark. But guys, thanks for tuning in. George, pleasure as always, mate. Good fun, that. And we will catch you tomorrow with an episode of the podcast. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you come and join us. But until then, take care and up the Chels.